I think we're live. Hello, everybody out there. Welcome to the weekly spinner rack. You know what? I'll do this greeting with the devil salute. That's how excited I am for tonight's show. No, welcome. My name is Chris. I'm your host. We've got a live chat that I'll be interacting with, but the weekly spinner rack is a show where we will talk about the comics that came out in the past week. These are just some of them, some really interesting stuff to talk about. And before that, I will get into recapping and riffing on the comic book news of the week, of which there's a lot this week. Maybe not so many items, but I think that the ones that we bring up, there will be a lot of discussion about. There's definitely some controversial stuff in there, but let me see if I've got anybody in the chat room that I can just quickly say hello to, give some shout outs. Always appreciate folks jumping in and participating. That's awesome. No, I haven't heard anything much on Neil Gaiman. Thank you, everyone. Lovely to see you all. Before I get started, I'll just throw out some plugs. There's still a relatively new Comic Tropes episode up on my other channel, Comic Tropes, about the first 10 years of Deadpool and what different artists and writers brought to that equation. That seems to be doing pretty well, so thank you very much for watching that. And on this channel, Jim Mafood and I released the latest trash movie Bonanza that we made. This one that we did was about what? I'm behind. Which one did we release? Oh yeah, sloppy sequels. We talk about sequels that have nothing to do with the original movie, pretty much. Highlander 2 and Prom Night 2. So definitely encourage you to check those out. I think that that's pretty funny. We've already recorded another. That's why I had to think for a minute. What else? This episode of this show, this is the birthday stream, folks. Technically, my birthday is tomorrow, but we'll be way past that by the time we have our next episode and get all together. So you can pretend that it's my birthday today and that we're all celebrating. What was I doing there? That was like the Trump dance. I don't know where that came from. Thank you all for being here. Yup, Highlander 2. I'm feeling a lot better. Oh, that's true. Yeah, so I had a tough week. I was in the hospital this week, but thank you. That's my sister. She knows. First time watching live. Thank you for jumping in. Let's see. Sal from Comic Pop just announced he's writing backups in the Terminator book coming this fall from Dynamite by Declan Shalvey. Huh. Congratulations, first of all, to Sal. That's fantastic. I would have thought Dynamite might have considered somebody like me for writing things like that. Nobody knows more about Terminator than me. I am a nerd for that, but that's okay. I'm happy for Sal. Sal's a great guy. So, and so is Declan, for that matter. I love Terminator. I'll be reading that. That sounds awesome. Thank you, everybody. That's kind. Throwing out some nice birthday wishes. Yep, getting older. Sorry, I can't catch every comment here. Wait, did I just see? I missed some of these. I thought it's going so fast. I thought that I saw a comment. Oh, there it is. Yeah, I thought I saw you in there, Jim. Nice to have you here, buddy. Keep it trashy. I always keep it trashy, especially when I'm with you. Let's see. Thank you, Max Power. Happy birthday. I appreciate the work you put out so much. I get a lot of reading recommendations from you. Right now, I'm reading an Omni of the original Doctor Strange run. Cool. Yeah, Dicko had some really cool ideas. You know what another good one is when Frank Brunner was doing the artwork for Doctor Strange. He was a really good fit. We're sending you Death Wish 4 on VHS as a delicious gift. How dare you? That's no gift. That's a punishment. EJ, awesome to have you here. And just to give a little hint at what's to come, there might be some EJ Sue news in the news of the week, okay? So we'll see. Tell you what, let's get into it. Enough preamble. Let's do this thing. Where's my layout? Whoop, there we go. Actually, is that the layout I want, or do I want one like this? I'm too big in that. That's pretty good. All right. So yeah, we will be talking about a very big AI comics project. So that I had to throw that in the thumbnail. I'm not looking forward to talking about that in a way. But before that, we've got some other stuff. I think Erwin Papa might actually be in the chat room tonight, and he's part of a group that I wanted to shout out tonight. The Ink and Drink Long Beach crew. Great crew. I don't have it handy, but they're a group that does drink and draws. Okay, cool. But their local comic shop, Pulp Fiction, Long Beach, was broken into this past week. And so these artists, this collective, is just trying to raise some funds to help the comic store. They had their cash register stolen and a few other little things. So a bunch of the crew is available to take commissions for little sketch cards, $20. Not bad. So, if you want to support a local comic book shop in recovering from theft, I just think this is a nice way to maybe get some cool artwork and help out there. So I just wanted to shout that out. Best way to get more information would probably be to look on Instagram for either the, as I'm highlighting here, the Ink and Drink LB, as in Long Beach, Insta, or the at Pulp Fiction Long Beach Instagram. Those would be two ways to reach out to the artists there. They'll list all the different artists that are taking commissions. You can look at their art styles, see if there's somebody that you especially like. And hey, $20 for like a bust of a character that you like. That's pretty nice, I think. So just wanted to shout that out before I got too far. Yeah, exactly. You could get a Deadpool sketch, maybe something unique. Thank you, Rob. Oh, happy birthday. Thank you. The Ennis McCrae Hitman Omnibus just released if you need a wonderful book to enjoy. I've read a couple issues, but I've never read the whole thing. Maybe I will do that. Thanks for the heads up. Thanks for the heads up. So, wanted to give that a shout out. What else do we have? Just sort of a funny thing that happened at San Diego Comic-Con, but that I didn't see in last week's recap. Actress Jennifer Garner was caught in an elevator at San Diego Comic-Con. So she was in that for over an hour, and she was like streaming and posting little video updates while she and some of her people were trapped in a stuck elevator, which actually, I once in college in the dorm room had like an elevator that got stuck for like 5 minutes. And I have to admit that like about 3 to 4 minutes in, I started getting a little nervous about the whole situation. You just start like letting it play out in your head. So it was an hour sounds a little stressful, to be honest. Yes, I was going to use that to segue, or segue as most people pronounce it, but I pronounce it segue. That was an impression of William Shatner. You pronounce it sabotage. I pronounce it sabotage. Anyway, yeah, one time I went to, here, I'll just minimize this briefly. So a couple years ago, I went to my local comic convention, Emerald City Comic Con in Seattle. And I made sure to get there early, like lined up by the door to be one of the first people in, because Daniel Warren Johnson was there and he was taking a very limited amount of commissions, something like, I don't know, the first 10 people or something like that. He didn't have a lot of availability, and I wanted to get in on that. So we get in, and the convention used to be housed in two separate, like a connected convention center, but two buildings that had a walkway. And for some reason, when I got in, I had it in my head that you could take this stairwell up and it would be faster, okay? All that matters is, as soon as I got in there, I realized the doors lock. They don't, you can't open them from the inside. And there's no air conditioning. It's hot as hell. Definitely not going to be one of the first people to get in line and get the sketch commission that I wanted. I was stuck in there and like tweeting. I had to call like the hotel itself, or not hotel, the convention center itself, and they had to send a security guy. It took like 30 minutes for me to get out of there. It was terrible. Anyway, so that was my experience, but it wasn't quite as long as Jennifer Garner being stuck there. So she started by asking Deadpool and Wolverine to save her. That's good. Yes. Well, both actors were there. Surprisingly enough, Ryan Reynolds and Hugh Jackman, neither of them actually know how to work on elevators. So neither of them actually saved her. She lost her mind after a while and began singing 99 bottles of beer. Very clever. And she did survive, folks. So if you were wondering, is Jennifer Garner still out there to ask what's in your wallet? The answer is yes. Okay, so that's a nice peace of mind, right? Hey, look at that. Thank you, John. I was just appreciating the birth of a new little step cousin in my life. Oh, that's awesome. That's really cool. Thank you very much. That's super kind. Moving forward, just kind of a funny little thing there. Way more serious. There was a humongous sex trafficking bust at San Diego Comic-Con this year. Yeah, let me break that down. So, an investigation into a sex trafficking ring at this year's San Diego Comic-Con led to 14 people being arrested and 10 victims being freed from this ring. One of them was only 16 years old. What? At Comic-Con? So the operation apparently has been going on for a while. It had law enforcement officers as well as like a dedicated San Diego human trafficking enforcement squad of some sort. They worked undercover at the convention as sex buyers in order to identify these traffickers and the victims. Yeah. I know. This is bonkers. I'm not going to get into any gory details, but the good news is that the bad guys got caught and the innocent people got helped. So it's a good story overall. This is interesting though. I never thought about this. California Attorney General Rob Bonta said, quote, "Unfortunately, sex traffickers capitalize on large-scale events such as Comic-Con to exploit their victims for profit." I have no idea how they advertise stuff like this. I can't even honestly think. I was like, how do they do that? And I didn't spend a lot of time dwelling on it because I don't want to get too dark, but I can't honestly figure out how they even do that. But yeah, apparently really big events are often where sex trafficking rings basically try to pimp their victims out. Terrible. Terrible. Had no idea stuff like this went on at comic book conventions. Bonkers story. The freed victims, they have a dedicated group in San Diego and probably a lot of other big cities to help people with this. They're given housing, they're given counseling, they're helped to get back into the workforce and back to normal lives. So just a crazy story. And I was like, well, if this stuff actually happens, as dark as it is, it's probably better that more people know about this stuff, because maybe it's more likely stuff like this can get shut down. If you hear about something crazy, you go, oh, that might be real. I should tell an authority. So anyway, I mean, yeah, terrible, but in this particular case, it sounds like a good thing. Like, they got a lot of people free. They got a lot of people arrested. 14 people arrested? That's a lot to me. That's a lot. So, let's see. I was in Miami for the Super Bowl in 2020. 2 weeks out, you saw anti-trafficking messages everywhere. It's insane how it travels where the action is. Huh. Had no idea. No idea. But I wanted to pass it on. Let's see if we've got anything more positive in the news. Sure we do. How about a Patton Oswalt comic getting a Netflix show? That sounds like a good idea to me. I love Patton, though. Huge fan. So Minor Threats. I talked about this book when it was coming out. I like this book quite a bit. It's written by Patton Oswalt and Jordan Blum. They also wrote the show MODOK together, if you remember that one. It's actually a pretty damn funny show. Artist was Scott Hepburn. Want to throw that out. And apparently it's getting a TV adaptation at Netflix. Dark Horse Comics, who published this, they have an overall first look deal. Like Netflix gets the first right of refusal. If they see a new comic from Dark Horse, they get to be the first ones to like make an offer or just say, no, I'm not interested in this before it goes to like any other sort of production company. Patton has been in a lot of comic adaptation type stuff too, because I mean, what he was in that show Happy, he was on MODOK, he was in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., he was Pip the Troll in the Eternals movie. I'm sure there's a bunch of others that I'm forgetting. I always appreciated how much Patton seems to genuinely like the medium, and it was cool to see him co-write a book. If you haven't read it, I'll just recap. The high-level plot is it's a bunch of D-list supervillains, like definitely not the top tier, but they team up when a real villain kills a very important superhero's sidekick, actually kills him. And that just throws the whole balance out of whack between superheroes and supervillains, because it's sort of like, I don't know. I don't want to spoil it, actually, but it's really, really cool. Oh, yeah, that's right. Patton was in Blade Trinity. I almost forgot about that. That's right. He was. Yeah, he did a voice in The Boys. So how could I forget about Space Cop? I'll watch anything Red Letter Media does. Right. Yeah. Most recently. Absolutely. He did the voice of Teddy in the No One podcast, which I really, really enjoyed. I knew there was a bunch of things I wasn't thinking about right now. Yeah. I agree. Minor Threats is really good. It isn't, just to be clear, it isn't a total joke fest. I mean, it's a humorous premise with like sort of humorous characters, but it treats the situation as pretty damn serious. It could like easily be a story that fits within a Marvel or a DC type universe. It's just doing its own thing. So I like Patton. I think he's a good person. I think he's a hilarious comedian. I sincerely always laugh at his stuff. And yeah, I liked his comic quite a bit. So I hope that the Netflix show, does for the comic, kind of like some other stuff from Dark Horse and Netflix, like Umbrella Academy has gone over very well. It wasn't quite for me. I preferred the comic, but it's nice that it introduced a bunch of new readers to the comic. A lot of people like that show, in other words. Matthew the Raven and Sandman. I see. Yeah, a lot of comic book stuff that he's done. I love it. I love it. He's maybe been in more things than Stan Lee. Stan Lee did cameos, but Patton did a lot of actual like voice work and sometimes character work. Yeah, good stuff. All right. So, that was in the news a while back. Netflix just decided not to release it. They filmed all 8 episodes and they decided not to do anything with it. And I don't think that they were able to, like the production company, I don't think was able to take it to a different streaming service. So unfortunately, that probably will never be seen. Yeah. Bummer. I love Grendel. I would have liked to have seen an adaptation of it. All right. Do you guys remember a few weeks back, I was showing you like that there were these promos for Idaho's #1 comics publisher, but that was all there was to the website? Well, we figured out what it is. It's Joe Quesada's new comic book imprint. Yeah, it's based out of Idaho. Joe Quesada is starting a new publishing, a new comic company called Amazing Comics. So they're the #1 comics publisher in Idaho, or they claim to be. I don't know if there are any others. There might be some sort of small press in Idaho that I've never heard of. But anyway, yeah. as far as getting the comics out, for now, think of this more as an imprint. And they're partnering with both Mad Cave Studios for North America and then European publishing house Dupuis. I don't know exactly how to pronounce that. Some sort of bande dessinée company. And they're going to help with the publishing and distribution. It's not abnormal for a lot of comic book publishers to start that way. I mean, technically, when Image started, they were being published through Malibu, for instance, things like that. And then the first title that they're going to do is this. It's called The Disciple, or just Disciple, I should say, not The Disciple, just Disciple. And it's said to be a take on Hamlet, co-written by Quesada with Charles Dorfman, and then illustrated by Quesada. So apparently this is a passion project. Quesada has obviously been the editor-in-chief at Marvel for a long time, up through 2023. But he said that as far back as 2005, he's been thinking of starting his own, publisher, and he wanted to do this book. So passion goes a long way. I don't know beyond that, like any other details. This is in the early days. Hair pieces. This is all real hair. I gotta say, don't need a hair piece yet. I might be thinning a little, but I do not wear a hair piece. I can proudly say. I have no idea what Axel Alonso is up to. That's an interesting question. Yeah, I know they're really big. I just don't know how to pronounce it because I couldn't find a video in time. But yeah. So, Idaho. We always thought of them as, potato manufacturer. Well, now, potatoes and comics, right? Potatoes and comics. Oh, those are two big comics. I definitely know about both of those. Okay. So, yeah, Joe Quesada starting a new publisher. I don't know what to think of this, it's strange. The marketing behind it is weird. The idea of the comic, sort of being, it seems like some sort of sci-fi or supernatural take on Hamlet is definitely different. I don't love the lettering on this logo because you can barely read it. Like, let's maybe use a different font that's a little thicker, or at least give it a better stroke, something like that. But I'll never count Joe Quesada out. He is a talented artist, and he had an eye for talent. It's not like everything he did was great at Marvel, but honestly, if you go back in time, when he and Jimmy Palmiotti started the Marvel Knights imprint, was pretty darn successful. It wasn't perfect. Like the Punisher take was weird, but Daredevil got a big boost at that point. Daredevil, yeah, had sort of like, it did very well when Frank Miller did it in the 80s, and I liked the Ann Nocenti run, but most of the 80s, 90s Daredevil, I don't think is super memorable until Marvel Knights, and then all of a sudden you get like this huge train of talent with like Kevin Smith, some of his best writing, and then there was Brian Michael Bendis, like early on at Marvel, and he's great at crime stuff. And then Ed Brubaker really making his name in comics. It was a really cool run. So let's talk about what I've got in the thumbnail. This is one of the biggest things of news this week. I did hear I'm going to talk about some omnibus stuff later. So yeah, he sold out to Big Potato. Yeah. You guys are good. Colin Kaepernick. If you guys don't know, I shouldn't assume anything, but Colin Kaepernick was an NFL quarterback for 6 seasons with the San Francisco 49ers, 2011 through 2016 or thereabouts. Maybe it went into 2017. I don't really remember. Started as the backup, but did end up taking over when whoever their lead their starter was, got like a concussion, I think. It was an injury anyway. Kaepernick took over, and he did take the 49ers all the way to the Super Bowl. Now, I remember they lost to the Ravens. Yeah. But he was a talented player. After that, he kind of like went back and forth between being the backup and the starter. San Francisco didn't really know what they wanted to do with their program. I'm just saying, and if you heard about him and you're not into football, it's because he famously, to protest police violence against black people, would take the knee during the national anthem. And that's fine, but he has definitely squandered a lot of goodwill with this move this week. So what has he done? So he helped raise $4 million in investments for a company called Lumi. And they're an AI-based publisher who their first goal is to get into comics. And then from there, if it goes well, they want to get into book publishing, this, that, and the other. This is a bad idea for many reasons. Many reasons. First of all, you legally can't copyright anything you write or create give as prompts to get artwork or at least images. I shouldn't even call it artwork. It's imagery. You can't copyright it. That's been decided by the higher courts here. Just like an animal couldn't accidentally walk their paw prints over a canvas, you couldn't legally copyright that either. It has to be created by a human. That's been decided. $4 million. Think of how much money that could have given to the actual comic industry. You could have gotten the absolute best of the best to create some of the best comics ever, or give rise to new voices in comics. But when it's created like a company like this, my thinking is this: Lumi gets a big name like Colin Kaepernick to be behind it. They get like headlines by creating comics, right? But my suspicion is this is a short-term company. Okay. I'm thinking like this just reminds me of, it wasn't that long ago when people were trying to make NFT type comics. I feel like there's going to be a pump and dump scheme here where the company goes public, really sells the hell out of all their shares, but then the owners instantly just sell all of their equity and it doesn't go anywhere. We'll see. It just reminds me of stuff like that. So moving on. Here's a quote from Kaepernick. Lumi addresses an unnecessary dependency on gatekeepers that slows creators down. This allows creators to get back to what they ultimately want to do, create. Well, I'm sorry. I disagree with that on a number of levels too. I don't think that you actually do create by by just typing in a prompt and getting a result. I don't think that's creating. It makes something, but I don't think you're really creating anything because it doesn't have the capability of coming up with something original. It's just remixing what it's been trained on. And a lot of these things have been trained on writing and artwork that the originators never opted into for the learning model. When you say a dependency on gatekeepers, though, I'm like, so who are the gatekeepers here? Like comic book artists? No offense, most comic book artists and writers are not super wealthy beyond their dreams. It is a very blue collar type job, in my opinion. People do it because of the love of storytelling, the love of artwork. Maybe you get to get wealthy. There's a couple people that have that fortune. I don't think it's the majority of comics creators. So when they're going after comics creators, that's another reason why I don't think that this is as a business model is necessarily going to be that successful, because I don't know that there's that much money in comics. There's money in adapting comics into things that are already profitable, like movies and music and TV, but comics itself, and just to call them gatekeepers is I can't just say the NFL is such a gatekeeper. They won't let me be a professional football player. No, comics, like any industry, just lets the cream rise to the top. That's all it is. It's competitive because people want to be in it, but that's any field. I feel like it's very rude to call it gatekeeping. I feel it's very rude and dismissive. It's a fundamental understanding. Gatekeeping is when you need multi-million-dollar computer to run. Yeah. And I know not everybody agrees. I do, but I just feel like this is a fundamentally broken idea. I'm not worried about it. I'm really not. I just think it's a bad idea. And that $4 million, that's going to come back to maybe a very small group of people at the very top of this, but a lot of people are going to lose money. I'm just positive. Who knows? Well, I've got some more for that, Gene, as far as educating himself on the industry, because he was at San Diego Comic-Con just a week and a half or whatever ago. This was him at one of the events, and he was talking to artists and trying to get them on board. So let me talk about that. So Kaepernick was at San Diego Comic-Con trying to recruit artists to sort of get on board and promote this idea. And according to a bunch of people that posted their stories to Instagram and Twitter and Threads, Kaepernick was telling the artists that it was like a charity. That's how he was describing it initially until they got into the weeds. I've got some juice on this. What they mean is movie pitchmen are gatekept. Maybe so. Thank you for the super chat. Maybe so. The best piece of information I got this week was my friend Carrie Randolph posted a story I'm about to share with you. If you don't know, Carrie is a fantastic artist, has a long history of working in comics. He's worked with Kirkman on stuff. He's done Ninja Turtles stuff, both TV and comics. He did a great comic just a few months back called Sirens of the City. He's done tons of stuff. He's worked at Marvel and DC. Great artist, really nice guy. Known him probably for over 20 years now, that I think, maybe 25. Anyway, he posted a very interesting story about Colin Kaepernick. I'm going to show it here. So, Carrie Pat posted this. It's been shared a bunch, but he says, to be clear, I was one of a number of artists that had meetings with Colin a few months ago. He told me broadly what his AI platform was about. He mentioned that it was about removing gatekeepers and how he wanted to benefit people from underserved walks of life. I told him that while I was a fan of his, I couldn't support this because those gatekeepers were people like me who had put our blood, sweat, and tears into our craft. Hard work, a pencil, and paper is all you need to make comics. I let him know that his product was going to hurt us long term. So, if anyone is asking whether Colin Kaepernick is aware of the misgivings artists have with AI, please believe that he has been made aware. And I know for a fact that I'm not the only one who did so. So, is he ignorant about it? No, the answer is probably not. He reached out to artists and was warned by them that it would not go over well with the artist community, and that it was basically taking from their livelihoods. So he has burned off any sort of sympathy I had with this move. Yes, he posted this to Facebook. So I'm disappointed. I'm really disappointed. It's a bad idea. And the only reason it's worth talking about as news is the fact that it's got a famous person gathering lots of publicity. There's tons of news articles about this. And the $4 million is not a small amount when you're creating something in comics. That is not a small amount. So let's see. Dave Raposa, also told him it was bad. There you go. There you go. I just want to say thanks, Carrie, for sharing your story about this just so that we had a better understanding. Because I'll be honest, when the news first started breaking, I was ready to give Colin the benefit of the doubt that he didn't understand the ramifications of what he was getting behind. That like he was just, talked into this by some tech fund guys. But I think he has been warned and he decided to ignore it. So we'll see. I'm not really worried about it. It might get some publicity short term. It might get some investments short term. I don't think it's going to create anything memorable. And I don't think that they're going to have a way to actually protect anything they create. So this would basically be an example of what I would call vanity press. It's a way for people to sort of get their ideas out there and say, hey, I made something. Well, sort of, but nothing that you can legally own. So good luck with that. I think that's all I've got to say about this. Here's something that's a little more fun. Last week, we talked about how DC Studios was bringing back the famous Martin Glazer DC logo. Well, it's coming back to the comics, too. Jim Lee himself, president at DC Comics, posted this to Instagram. He says, my peak years as a fan and reader of comics was the mid-1980s, and DC was going through a powerful transformation. He says a number of nice things, but in the minds of many fans, including myself, this logo, designed by the preeminent designer Milton Glaser, is the mark that defined the DC brand. And he mentions that it's going to be on all DC comics going forward starting in October and on other merch and toys in early 2025. I think that's great. I think it's a great logo. It's simple, but it's iconic. It really works well. There is some nostalgia to it. There's no question, but I think it's a really nice logo. I don't think their logos that they've come up with since then, not bad, but not as iconic. I just don't think that they're not quite there. They're not quite as simple. So anyway, I like that. It's a small news story, but I think it makes sense. I think that this is DC's longest logo. I want to say 29 years. Does it mention in this how long they had it? I don't think it does. But I think it was about 29 years they had this logo, which is the longest logo they had. And I think it really became part of it. Hey, thanks, Nick. Let's see. As always, enjoy Chris's shows both here and on Comic Tropes. There's 261 fans watching, but only 67 likes. Let's rally up. More likes. Remember, likes are free. Thumbs up are priceless. Thank you, Nick. And apparently, congratulations on getting Sal from Comic Pop to write some backup stuff on Terminator. That's something I just learned, and congrats to both of you. That's a pretty big platform to promote Terminator on. Thank you very much for the super chat. I'll consider that my birthday gift. Again, this is the birthday show. Yeah, happy for you, Nick. Happy for you. And I appreciate the kind words, but love it when you guys hit things like and subscribe. Love it. Really helps. Moving forward, what else have we got? Daniel Warren Johnson is somebody that's doing very well in comics these days. Very well. And me too. You quiz me on anything. I know my Terminator info inside and out. It is my birthday tomorrow, so we're considering this the birthday stream. All right, I got sidetracked. Let me reset. Daniel Warren Johnson, super successful this year. He's doing very well. But he actually had a Superman pitch rejected. Let's talk about that. So, comicbook.com did an interview with Dan at San Diego Comic-Con. They released that this week, so this is just coming out. And primarily, they were, discussing Transformers. But beyond that, Dan was asked if he had any DC characters that he'd like to work on because, he had success recently with things like Jurassic League, Wonder Woman Dead Earth. Again, I really strongly recommend Wonder Woman Dead Earth. Standalone, Wonder Woman story, fantastic. Really made me love the character. This is what Dan said in reply to asking if there's any other DC stuff he wanted to do. Superman. I have a great Superman book. DC's turned me down once. We'll try again soon. He also said one thing in the book would be a plastic man with no arms and no legs. So I guess just some sort of bouncing ball. Don't know how that would fit in. Don't know what kind of a story it is, whether it's post-apocalyptic like Wonder Woman Dead Earth or something more hopeful. He's good at tugging at the heartstrings, folks. He's good at tugging at the heartstrings. Did you miss too much? Mostly just the AI discussion. We've got a lot of other big news. And I just am saying, like, what? A week and a half ago, he picked up 2 Eisners. Transformers is selling like crazy. I feel like it's very likely DC would be willing to listen closely if he pitched that again. So we'll see. We'll see. That would make Plastic Man a shmoo, technically. That's true. Oh, and is anybody doing Herculoids? Is anybody doing Herculoids? I can do wait, Shmoo was Flintstones, wasn't he? I was thinking of Herculoids was Gleep and Glop or something, and they went whoa! I think that's from Uruguay, right? Don't say it's not much. People give me $1 and I'm super grateful. I'm super grateful. Thank you so much for that. I really appreciate the kindness a lot. Gleep and Gloop. Yeah, okay. I liked Herculoids. That was like a rerun that I really liked growing up. You know what I was thinking of just now is Thundar the Barbarian, which I'm pretty sure Dynamite is doing because they did a bunch of stuff with like Warner Brothers properties. But Herculoids always had a similar visual look. So anyway, I liked Herculoids a bunch growing up. Xandar. That was the name of the guy, Xandar. And he had a bunch of alien family members. They were just like intelligent pets that were all like, dragons and a rock gorilla. Yeah, the rhino that shot the bullets from its horn and it had like 6 legs. I love that stuff. It was Alex Toth that designed those, right? I mean, it sure looks like his style, but I'd have to double check. Oh, you've got Herculoids too? Oh, that's funny. Okay, I didn't know you got... Okay, good. That's nice. Herculoids and Thundar. Yeah. Well, Nick and his crew worked for a long time to create these relationships. I mean, and if DC isn't going to use all their Warner Brothers stuff, and if, Marvel isn't going to use all their Disney stuff, Disney and Warner Brothers, like, yeah, somebody should. These are popular characters. It was Toth. Okay, I would have had to double check. All right. What else have we got? Oh, DC apparently is having success with their compact titles. That's something that only just came out. But they've got a lot more coming. I've heard a lot of people like Space Ghost. Space Ghost is happens to be a what would you just call it? Like a blind spot for me. It's not something I know a lot about. Yeah. I didn't see that one growing up, but I saw Herculoids. So DC Compact. This is cool. These are their comics that are printed at 5.5 by 8.5. I've got one. Yeah. 5.5 inches by 8.5 inches. Not quite as small as manga. It's a notch bigger, but it's definitely pocket sized, and it's $10. And these usually range between like 250 to 300 some pages, because they'll be like up to like 12 issues. $10. That's a good value. I would love to see more publishers take a chance on $10 anything like that's a trade paperback that thick. So here's some more that they've got coming up. well, here, yeah, I hadn't read it before, but I'd heard good things for Far Sector. Here's the reason why they probably didn't go all the way down to manga size, Buster. This is all work that was created for, typical comic size. So if you shrunk it down a little bit more, the font and the text might become too small. You'd have to redo all of that. You'd have to, and maybe it's worth it, but you'd have to redo the lettering. You can read it at this size just fine, in my opinion. But if you shrunk it down another inch, it might be hard to read. It's right on the edge. So I think that it's a scale issue. So here's what they've got coming out though. May of next year, Kingdom Come. Solid. Static Season 1. Deceased. Batwoman Elegy. I'm pretty sure that was still with who is it? J.H. Williams. Superman Birthright. That's a pretty acclaimed one. Superman Batman Book 1. Somehow I didn't copy it all. And obviously Authority Book 1. Authority. So out of this, I don't know, I've read Kingdom Come, I've read Authority. What would I try? I don't think I've read all of Batman Birthright though. So I'd probably pick that up. I might pick up Static for $10. It feels like it's a really good value. So pretty nice. Big Little Books. I think the reboot. No, I don't think this is the Milestone version. This is the DC stuff. Oh man, Atari Force would be amazing. But these days that would involve a lot of weird rights stuff, and Atari might not have any interest in licensing it anymore. Interesting idea though. Great artwork by Jose Luis Garcia Lopez. Great artwork. I think that they do have some Teen Titans coming too. I just didn't have it all. Let's just I bet you anything DC is holding out on reprinting Supergirl Woman of Tomorrow in the compact size until closer to when the movie's going to come out. I would bet you anything. Roy Thomas, what are you doing to your legacy? Oh my goodness. Roy Thomas stepped on a rake that snapped into his face this week and then did it about 20 more times like Sideshow Bob out of a Simpsons episode. Just my opinion, but let's talk about what Roy did this week. So, Roy Thomas wrote an editorial. You can read it here in the Hollywood Reporter. And I'm going to quote some of it. This is Roy's own words, talking about Wolverine, because Wolverine, of course, was in the recent Deadpool and Wolverine movie. He goes, I'm particularly grateful to Marvel Entertainment for seeing the virtue of my position of some months ago that, building on the less formalized credits in 2017's Logan, Len Wein, John Romita, and I deserved official co-creator status on Deadpool and Wolverine, just as the two co-creators of Deadpool have enjoyed. He's talking about Nicieza and Liefeld. Oh, sure. I strongly feel my name should have come first, not last, in the Wolverine grouping, since the Wolverine character was my concept on which Len and others built. But hey, being listed last never hurt Oliver Hardy, Lou Costello, Jerry Lewis, or Paul McCartney, right? Or Jack Kirby, as in Simon and Lee and come to that. Oh my God. All right. So folks, Roy Thomas was the editor of books like Hulk and stuff. And typically an editor does not get co-creator credit. Their job is to guide their writers and artists, give them ideas, give them feedback. But typically, unfortunately, it's not unfortunate though. You get paid well for being the invisible hand that guides things. Okay. And yeah, maybe you get some credit, but the idea that he should be credited first, just to be clear, folks, he didn't write Wolverine's first appearance. Wolverine was written by Len Wein, designed by John Romita, first drawn in a published issue by Herb Trimpe. so what did he create? What did he create? I'm going to get into that a little bit, actually. So the Wolverine, a hero with healing powers, was submitted. That's this art that I've got here at the bottom, was submitted to FOOM. That was the Friends of Marvel magazine. I don't remember exactly what all the O's stand for. Friends, I don't know. It was called FOOM. It was an official Marvel magazine. So this was submitted in a character creation contest. And it was published in issue 2, June of 1973, which Thomas was the editor of, and he replied to this submission saying, I'll be showing this one to Stan. So you've got the name and you've got the healing powers. And then Len actually wrote the character. Ramita designed it. The only thing I could really give Thomas any credit for is apparently he suggested that Wolverine should be Canadian. Although I don't think that the Canadian aspect was necessarily brought up in the first issue of Hulk. Maybe it was. It's hard to remember off the top of my head. That may have been done later. So just wild to me that, this issue, famous, Hulk 181, first full appearance of Wolverine. That didn't come out till November 1974. And yes, he had a cameo in the previous issue, but so, October of 74. But that's over a year after a character with the name and the idea of healing powers was submitted to Marvel that Roy Thomas acknowledges. So I don't know how he can say, I created this idea and then everybody else ran with it. I just don't get it. Look, and you know what? I'm open to hearing the argument, but I've yet to hear one. I just haven't even heard. He just says he's the co-creator. But here's the thing. Roy Thomas was not saying this in the 70s, in the 80s, in the 90s, in the aughts, in the 10s. He wasn't saying it. He waited seemingly for people like Len Wein and John Romita Sr. and Herb Trimpe, all these guys to have passed away. And then all of a sudden, oh yeah, I created that. So I don't know. It really annoys me. It really annoys me. I don't know that it's the Canadian specifically, but where he's from is important. He's from the upper north, and that is a big part of his character. So I don't know. Yeah. Oh yeah. If you don't know, I've actually got an episode on comic tropes about, creators getting satirized or burned in actual comics, and one of them is Jack Kirby created Funky Flashman, who was like a parody of Stan Lee, and House Roy, which was just sort of like a really bootlicking version of Roy Thomas. It was pretty brutal stuff. If somebody wants to take the other side and explain to me what Roy did that deserves credit in an industry that I've never really seen an editor get co-creator credit for, I'm open to it. But what about all the other characters that, he probably was the editor over? I mean, I'm sure that Ween is he going to say that he came up with Wendigo? I don't know. Crazy story. I encourage you to read the story on the Hollywood Reporter, but then I also encourage you to read up on The Wolverine by Andy Olson that was submitted to Friends of Old Marvel. Moving on, will Robert Downey Jr.'s Doctor Doom for the MCU be explained in the comics? That was something that was being talked about this week. So, Ultimates writer, or the Ultimates writer, Dennis Camp posted this. He used a different image for issue 4, but he posted to Twitter saying that if you want to understand Robert Downey Jr. as Doom, you must read Ultimates 4 on September 4th or whenever it comes out. Just want to say, a bunch of news services took it and ran, saying if you want to understand why Robert Downey Jr. in the MCU is playing Doctor Doom, you have to read this issue. I'm pretty sure that Dennis Camp was joking. So that's the only thing I have to add to this. Pretty sure he's joking, because if you haven't been reading it, in the new Ultimate Universe, this Doctor Doom is Reed Richards, and he was basically imprisoned in this armor by the Maker, and he decided to call himself Doom. But I'm pretty sure that is a joke. I'm pretty sure that's a joke. Yeah, it could be a sales pitch, but yeah. Marketing genius. Oh, let's see. Camp himself admitted that when his wife is out, he writes in shit posts late into the night. Okay. Good to know. Didn't know that. Maybe it's true. We'll know in a couple weeks, I guess. Maybe more than a couple, but still, I think he was just joking. And the only reason I'm explaining that is because, again, if you looked up in the news, like Doctor Doom, you're going to see some places that pick this up as an actual news story. And I don't think that that's real. Still going on with the MCU, though. I got really excited with this news, to be honest. I'll explain why. So Kevin Feige confirmed that they are still working on making a Vision show. And if you didn't watch WandaVision, Vision was rebuilt, just like in the comics. And he looks like this now. And there's a lot to it. I don't want to explain it all. But Vision is technically back. Well, Feige was interviewed by Inverse, and he said that a Disney Plus show based on the new White Vision would be a show in 2026. And he specifically said that he fought hard to secure Terry Matalas as the showrunner after he saw his work on Picard Season 3. If you haven't seen it, folks, Picard Season 3 is awesome. Just fantastic Star Trek. Picard Season 1 and 2, pretty damn bad. All of a sudden, out of nowhere, Season 3 just gives you everything you'd want out of the whole Next Generation crew. Just fantastic season, full of good emotions, good story beats. It was really, really nice. Terry Matalas did a great job turning that show from a total disaster into must-watch TV. So that's what I'm excited about. The idea of Terry Matalas being the head of this show sounds really good. And he's worked on a couple different types of shows. He worked on the 12 Monkeys TV show. He worked on a few other things. Jocasta has never shown up in the MCU. Could be a character that they could do something with. Maybe Machine Man. Who knows? The ship of Theseus Vision. Exactly. Been completely replaced bit by bit. But yeah. I don't blame you. EJ. Season 1 and 2, not great. Really not great. Fortunately, you do not have to have watched those to watch and enjoy Season 3. Season 3 just takes it on a different route and is just really, really nice. Really, really nice. So, yeah, I'm just excited to see that come to fruition. Obviously, it's a little ways off. But Paul Bettany apparently is signed to do it again. And, he can get old as long as he doesn't put on a ton of weight. They can always cover him in this stuff, and he can play Vision probably till he's 90. Anyway, let's see. The weird thing is the best Vision comic was already used mostly for WandaVision. You're saying because, well, yeah, I mean, it took some from both the Scarlet Witch and Vision miniseries, but also the Vision series by Tom King. There's some other stuff in there that's good. Roy Thomas created Paul Bettany. If they make a brute force movie, you better have Paul Scheer in there. Exactly. It's a mostly CG character because he's phasing through things and flying and stuff. What are you talking about? I just told you the real thing about what happened in Twisters. It's 35 minutes of funeral scenes. Oh, somebody heard a cat meow. Doing a lot better today than I was earlier this week. Thank you very much. All right. Rob Liefeld art. This Rob Liefeld art is going to auction. But that's not all. Heritage Auctions has listed, as of today, Rob Liefeld's original art for New Mutants number 98, the cover, with a starting bid of $7.5 million. If it sells at that asking price, and something tells me that there's a speculator out there that can do it, that would make it the most expensive original comic art of all time. Probably Nick Barucci's going to buy it, knowing how much original art he owns. But no. You know what was interesting, though, before I continue with the news bits, was looking at this. By the way, this is to me Liefeld in his prime. I think that is honestly fairly dynamic. I liked Liefeld when I was young. When this came out, I liked him a lot. And there's stuff that is exciting about it. I don't like everything about it. I don't think it's a perfect layout, but I think it's good. But what's interesting is seeing like this spotted black here. It looks like he must have used some pretty cheap markers, because that is definitely aged, you know? That has not stayed a deep, rich black the same as some of these other blacks that he must have used, like, you know, a better, say, India ink or something for inking these characters. But for this, he used something else. And yeah. You didn't save that much lunch money. Yo, you don't have a 7.5 million like burning a hole in your pocket, Nick? Oh, okay. Oh, absolutely. I would too if I had it. But anyway, the other thing I just wanted to point out in terms of the price, the previous record holder for the most expensive original comic book artwork is in 2019. There was an auction for Frank Frazetta's Eerie number 23 cover, and that went for $5.4 million. And even that seems ridiculously high for me. That seems like it's more of an investment than, say, a fan just picking it up. But I will say, the Frank Frazetta pieces are like full paintings. And I've been to the Frazetta Museum and seen his original paintings up close. And I'll just say they're gorgeous. Just real works of art. Frazetta was a genius. Comics is so lucky to have had Frank Frazetta. So lucky. Someday I'll talk about his specific comic book work, but he was great. And he really was one of these great artists working in comics that I think helped add to the legitimacy and appreciation of comics, because it was like, if you saw a painted cover there, you were like, oh, this looks fantastic. This easily looks as good as any other book or magazine that was out at the time. Just an artist that I'm a huge, huge fan of. So $5.4 million for Frazetta is one thing, but going up to 7.5, that's the starting bid, by the way. So if it sells, it's probably going to go for more than that. I don't know. I don't know what that means. That isn't being sold by Liefeld himself either, by the way. This piece has been owned by some private collector for something like 20 years. And he's said to have said no to many offers over the years, but the timing is right. You know, the Deadpool and Wolverine movie is out now. There's probably not going to ever be a better time to sell this particular piece. There probably is not. Frazetta's a genius. I would say they do in the short term, but if you look at like some of the older stuff by the top tier artists, it can be harder to get. So, you know, original art can go way up there. Someone's going to finally own the first appearance of Gideon. Yes. But yeah, 7.5 million. It'll be interesting. Maybe it doesn't move for that, folks. But something tells me the way these heritage auctions go, I feel like it is. I feel like it probably will. But obviously that's not going to like anybody here, that goes to, probably some, I don't know, Saudi oil baron or something like that. Like somebody in the royal family in Buckingham Palace has that kind of money to lay out for an investment. Switching tones. I hate having to do this sometimes, but I want to give credit to important people when they pass away. And I don't think everybody out there knows who I'm talking about when I mention Joyce Brabner. Joyce passed away this week. Some of you will definitely know. Joyce was a writer, a comics writer, but she was other things. She passed away this past week at age 72. She's been battling cancer for a long time. Long battle. She was brought to the public eye, or at least the comics reader's eye, as a supporting character in American Splendor. That was Harvey Picard's autobiographical comic. And he met Joyce when she worked at a comic shop. She also was working at like a costume shop. And they got married within 3 dates. They got married really fast after getting to meet. Yeah, wait a minute. I can get that. You're right. We all chip in $1. But I'll just go back to talking about. I like Joyce's writing. I've read a bunch of it. She's talented. So anyway, she got into the eye by marrying Harvey, but she was always into comics, and she co-wrote Our Cancer Year with Harvey. That was basically a year of Harvey battling cancer. Really, really great book. Really interesting, insightful. Help people understand what it's like to go through there and have something relatable. Some of the best autobiographical comics out there, by the way. Everything American Splendor branded, you can't go wrong. You cannot go wrong. I'm sure I mentioned her. I'm sure I did. I was on a listserv with Joyce in the 90s, amazing activist. She was getting used modems to sell to revolutionaries in third world countries to get them on the internet. Well, let me continue then. Yeah, she was politically active. Another really huge book that she did, 1989, right? She did Brought to Light. And that was a collaboration with Alan Moore and Bill Sienkiewicz, 1989. Huge talents, obviously. But in 1989, boy, was their star burning bright. And she got both of them to work on her book, Brought to Light. It was nonfiction. It investigated the CIA's involvement in the Iran-Contra affair. If you weren't alive there, I don't blame you for not necessarily knowing this, but that was a humongous news story. Humongous. And to bring it to comic book form with these talents is something huge. And on a more personal level, she wrote a story for my friend Jason's book that was called Postcards. My friend Jason Rodriguez had an idea to he used to collect vintage postcards, and you'd see these stories from like almost 100 years or more in the past, and he gave these out to various comic book writers and artists, and they would basically create what they thought the story behind it was. And Joyce did one of those. So really cool. Strange Brain Parts did a video on that comic. Oh, how interesting. I'd probably like to read or watch something like that. They famously were like doing some illegal stuff there. Yeah, look into like Oliver North and the Iran-Contra affair. It's pretty bad. It's not a great time for our country. So anyway, Brought to Light is wild, an incredible book. Nice. Yeah. So just want to give her a shout out. Joyce wrote some stuff on her own, co-wrote some stuff with Harvey, and literally appeared as a character in American Splendor, which means she also appeared in the American Splendor movie. If you haven't seen that, it's got actors playing Harvey and Joyce. And then sometimes the real Harvey and Joyce are in the movie talking about like what really happened and how like the movie isn't quite getting it right. So pretty interesting to see. Pretty cool. It's a good movie. It's a really good movie. It's funny, but real. But that's Harvey. That does sound right that it wouldn't have been in print right now. But yeah. I think it was Hope Davis that played Joyce in the movie, but I'd have to double check. I don't know off the top of my head. Want to give a shout out to Jim Zub. He signed a new Conan deal, and Jim Zub is really great guy. I'm glad I know him. He's a real talent. He can write in a lot of different genres, and I tend to really enjoy his books. But he's been crushing it on Conan for quite a while now. So this comes from Jim himself. He announced on social media that he signed a non-exclusive deal, means he can write at other publishers, but a deal with Conan the Barbarian rights holder Heroic Signatures to write the Titan Comics version of the character for at least another 3 years. If you haven't read it, Rob Delatorre is the main artist on it. And if you look at this, this is not John Buscema, and that is not somebody trying to draw like John Buscema. That is Rob Delatorre. That is just how he draws, and he's really, really good. He's really good. It's a great fit. Jim also wrote Conan at Marvel, and then when the rights went over to Titan Comics, he actually kept writing the book. It doesn't refer to the Marvel continuity, basically. It's not like it contradicts it, but it doesn't refer to it. It's a fresh start. If you've never read Conan, the Titan Comics version is a great place to start. You can pick it up in trade paperback. It's really, really nice. Jim and Rob did a Red Sonja series before doing Conan together. And of course, that would have been at Nikki's company, Dynamite. Yeah, seriously, Delatorre is just really, really awesome. And I just wanted to shout him out. But Jim does a great job of making Conan, he's a barbarian. He isn't dumb, though. He's cunning. He's more than just a great fighter. He's cunning. And you can see that there's like this potential for Conan to, like, you know, eventually in the books, he basically becomes a king, and you sort of understand how he could be that one day, but now he's young and brash and looking for adventure and stuff. And he goes through all sorts of tragedy, but he still kind of keeps fighting, even when he's got like plenty of reasons to stop. And it's just interesting to see a wanderer go into strange lands. And beyond that, he also is really good at apparently beating his meat. I don't know why, but this is what Conan likes to do. They made a toy. I did not make this. This is an official toy. That's just what he does. That is just what Conan does. I'm glad you're so happy, Conan. Look at how happy that face is. That is one happy Conan, and why not? Why not? What is best in life? Apparently, beating the meat. My sister's mad at me. I have to move on. No, he did not have a sword. That's what he was built for. Hide your children. I'd expect that from He-Man. Eventually, the right hand will be bigger, yes. Do what is best in life, Conan. And just wanted to say that Conan has been doing very well with both critics and readers. I like it a lot. I recommend it. Also, look at the timing there. So they signed Jim to write for at least 3 more years. Well, it's 2024 now, and Conan does go into the public domain here in America in 2028. So, what happens then? You know, Heroic Signatures probably has things like a trademark on the exact look of this Conan, but that's going to go into the public domain pretty soon, all things considered. Hey, that's a birthday present from my friend Chuck. He's not Italian. I was just doing that for fun. Thank you. Thank you, man. That's really nice of you. That's really nice of you. Oops, I meant to do this in bullet points form, but you'll get all of it at once. So, Pacific Rim is getting an official comics sequel. And this is why I was telling you guys that there was going to be some EJ Sue news tonight, because EJ was at least in the chat room earlier. I don't know if he still is, but I'm excited, folks. I like Pacific Rim a lot. Not just the first movie. The first movie is the best. It is. I kind of like Uprising. It's not as good, but it's still entertaining to me. And they did something different, and you know, it's still open enough mythology that you can do a lot with it. And I like the Pacific Rim anime series on Netflix, but we're getting an official sequel to the two movies. So they've launched a Kickstarter for a 3-volume graphic novel sequel series to Pacific Rim and Pacific Rim Uprising. It's going to star both Raleigh Beckett and Jake Pentecost, the two characters from the first and second movie. And they're going to be leading Jaegers. Thanks, Kitty. They're going to be leading Jaegers into the Antiverse. That's where all those monsters come from. So we're finally getting like a big war. We're getting a war. Atlantic Rim, I think, was the knockoff cheapy movie, right? I don't think he has any direct involvement in the comic, but Legendary Pictures is what owns it. Can $5 still get a birthday Happy Meal? It'll have to. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. Great crew behind this. Joshua Fialkov, big fan of his writing. I think he's a great comics writer. I sincerely think he's great. And I think you guys all know I'm a big fan of EJ. EJ's a fantastic artist. This is a really good crew. So each volume is going to be about 120 pages, and they're going to be released yearly. Fall of this coming 2025, like October, they say, is ballpark, and then fall of 2026 and 2027. So if you support this, you get like a pretty humongous Pacific Rim story. This is through Legendary, and so yeah, it's considered an official sequel. Yes, if anybody knows, EJ has done some great Transformers stuff as well as other stuff, so he can do tech like upside down, but he's also really good at expressive characters and making them relatable and real and stuff like that. It is a great creative team. It just makes sense when I saw it. I should have double checked, but I think Joshua did write those sort of there were some other Pacific Rim comics, and I think he wrote them. Anyway, I'm excited personally. I think that if you're not able to get another movie by Del Toro, and realistically we're probably not, because he has so many things on his plate, a comic book sequel sounds definitely like the next best thing. I prefer this over, say, a TV show sequel or something like this. This is really what I want to see. The story directly following after the second movie. I'm glad that they're keeping it all in continuity and everything. I can't wait. I liked it. I like Pacific Rim a lot. I think it's a fun idea, but I'm a big fan of like monsters. I'm a big fan of giant robots. So it just, it tickled my giant monster fetish bone. Doesn't everybody have that bone? Yeah, The Black was that animated show on Netflix, right? I have seen it. It's good. I saw the first episode of Cape Crusader. I'll just briefly say that so far I like it. Oh man, what a team they've got on that. Matt Reeves, who did the Batman, Bruce Timm, who obviously did the great 90s show, and Ed Brubaker, my favorite crime comics writer. Just so cool. So cool. I watched the first episode. I love the style. It's old fashioned, but exciting. It's really, really cool. I can't wait to watch more. There's the link if you want to look it up, but it's live now on Kickstarter. I supported it. It's most of the way there within day one. Or at least a good chunk there. I think it's definitely going to get fulfilled. I can't wait. I did. I like that they're going with like, sort of a minimal story, or smaller scale story and the horror vibe. I want it to be good. We'll see. I want it to be good. Marvel is going to do a bunch of omnibuses. I'm just going to mention a few of them. You can Google it if you're curious what their whole range is, but I was excited to see some books that I haven't really seen talked about in a while. For instance, I've made an episode about it. I love the comic Strike Force Morituri. I just think it's an incredible idea. I'm not going to recap it all for you right now, but it's just the premise is unlike anything else. It's fantastic. It's really, really good. But they're going to compile the entire run this coming May. 1,080 pages, $125. Seems like a reasonable to me. Another one that they're coming out with is 3 volumes of Marvel Fanfare. Marvel Fanfare was a book that the goal was sort of just to get the best people and write one-off stories. So, like this first issue, the cover there, that was Spider-Man and the X-Men having an adventure in the Savage Land, and that was written by Claremont and drawn by Michael Golden. But they had all sorts of, like, they just jump around to all sorts of characters and stuff. It was an 80s book, so it means you get guys like Frank Miller. You get a lot of like really great artists and writers. It's a really underrated series. And I'm so happy to see this finally get released in any form, because it hasn't even been released in trade paperback in forever. But the Spider-Man run by J.M. DeMatteis and Sal Buscema, that's coming out in July. Look at that. 1,208 pages, 125. That was Spectacular Spider-Man. Spectacular Spider-Man, about a 5-issue run that was really, really strong. Had some really great stuff with Green Goblin, to be honest, like some really good stuff with the Osborns. But some really good stuff with Peter and Mary Jane. Yeah, just a whole host of different villains too. Sometimes you'd get Puma or Vermin, less used ones. It wasn't the Amazing Spider-Man title where they sort of put all their marketing and like flashy stuff, but Spectacular Spider-Man was a really good run. Really good run. Yeah. Yeah, so good. A lot of the first 10 stories were inventory stories. Yes, Nick is talking about Marvel Fanfare. That was actually like about the only criticism people ever had about Marvel Fanfare, was that they would say these were things that, like Marvel just was holding on to in case somebody was late on an issue. They could like slot that in for, say, a late X-Men. But the editor said he would only use them in Marvel Fanfare if he thought that they were exceptional. And I really do think that they had some top tier talent on Marvel Fanfare. So yeah, I would consider doing a video on that specific Spider-Man run. I think it's underrated. I think it's kind of forgotten at this point. It was a 90s era thing, early 90s. Actually late 80s, now that I think of it. Late 80s into the early 90s. But it was really strong, really strong. So I'm excited to see some of these. I have Strike Force Morituri, but I'll be talking this up when it comes out, because yeah. Right, yeah. George Perez is another one that was in there. Just really, really did some good stuff. So I'm excited to see some of these books that I didn't expect to see come out. Some other things that they have in there: New Warriors, Peter David's X Factor run, his first one, a bunch of other stuff. Right, that was the editor. I thank you for saying that, actually, Nick, because it was in the back of my mind. I'm going like, who was the editor? It's not Roy Thomas, but that's the name that kept popping in my head because I had a news story about him. Al Milgrom as the editor. And I think he did a good job, like, selecting some really cool stories. So anyway, these should be some good omnibuses, good value too. And yeah, this is the last news story I have. It's manga, but My Hero Academia wrapped up. So Boku no Hero Academia. It's fun to read katakana because all you're doing is basically using Japanese sounds to make English words. It makes it easy to understand. But yeah, long-running book, long-running manga, and superhero one, which is pretty rare in manga. 430, chapter 430. That was its last chapter. Came out just a couple days ago in Weekly Shonen Jump. There are still things like the anime adaptation, and sort of films that are like slotted in between seasons and chapters. Like there's a film coming out in a week or two in Japan. So there is still some stuff coming out. There's been spin-off manga that just takes place in that world, but the main story did wrap up. However, its writer and artist, Kohei Horikoshi, is said to announce what's next for him this week. Will it be something brand new? Will it be something connected to My Hero Academia? I don't know. I don't know yet. But supposedly that's being announced sometime today, and Japan is way ahead of us. But I looked just before the show, and I couldn't see what that is. But I like that book. I think the first half of its run stronger than the latter half, but I did like that book a lot. So wanted to mention that. I am going to bring up a second camera. Give me a moment to turn it on and focus it, and we'll talk about some of the comics that came out this week, of which there were many. Let's see. I could always have this set up ahead of time, but I'm always worried that the battery on my camera would die by the time I get to it. There we go. Let me just zoom in a little. I think that looks about right. Okay. We'll do it like this. That's not quite in focus, is it? Give me a moment. Trying here. There, I think that's good. And then I just need to shift things over. All right. Thanks for your patience when I do that step. Never my favorite. You know what? I'll just talk about the first book that happens to be up here. And I want to say Blood Hunt was a pleasant surprise for me. This was a good event book, in my opinion. And I've got a specific reason why I think it was good. First of all, yeah, there were spin-offs and tie-ins, but you know what? I got the full story in 5 issues. I like that. I do. I'd rather do 5. I'm not going to do 10 or 12. You know, I'm just not. Oh, I did get the red band edition, actually, Kevin. I'm not sure what the difference is for this specific issue, but yeah, this is the red band edition. First of all, the artwork by Pepe Larraz is really strong. This is really well detailed and dynamic. It's an exciting looking book. Great colors by Marta Gracia. Thank you. By the way, Al Milgram is one guy that definitely deserves his own Comic Tropes video. That's possibly true. That's possibly true. Thank you for the super chat. But here's what I really liked about this. Here's what I liked about it is that it didn't just undo everything. It didn't do like a time travel back to the past or anything weird like that to just undo it. We learned as the series went on that Blade was the villain, but he was possessed by the first vampire, Varney, who's an actual character from the comics. We learned, like, there were other characters that were turned into vampires, and they have specific ways they save some of these characters. They don't just magically undo any of the vampirism or the deaths or anything like that. So nothing's just magically undone. The heroes come up with a clever way to overcome the villain. Boy, everything about this is spoilery. I'm just giving you glimpses. That's tricky. That's tricky. What's really cool is it also, I didn't realize it would do this, but it sets 2 things up. It gives us a reason for Mark Spector to return as Moon Knight, and actually it gives a new direction for Blade, now that I think of it. But specifically, the heroes do have to sacrifice something in this. Doctor Strange has to basically give Doctor Doom some of his title. He has to give him his title. Doctor Doom has prepared for this, and he knows how to beat like a situation like this, but it requires having the title and the powers of Sorcerer Supreme. I'm not spoiling everything about it. It's just that like that's the way that they will ultimately be able to defeat this vampire threat. And Doctor Doom plays the heroes of this. Doctor Doom does not like sort of betray anything that in the past. You know, he's a man of his word. That's the one thing you can say about Doom, is he is a man of his word, but he also thinks that he knows best. Maybe he does. I don't know. But this is going to lead. This tells a full story of a great battle of like, you know, all sorts of superheroes against tons of vampires, including like a really powerful one. But it also sets up some news story stuff. And I'll just like grab like random pages. Oh, so here's something clever about this, okay? Let me talk about the storytelling in this. Because this is where you see that Pepe Larraz isn't just a good artist, okay? Look at this. This is the Avengers having a fight. And what do we see with the panels? Skewed, right? There's an energy, but also like sort of, it's not perfectly organized, right? It's chaotic in its own way. Okay. So that's cool. That's how that part of the story is being told. Then we have more dialogue heavy stuff happening with Doctor Doom and Doctor Strange. And these panels, if you'll notice, are more rectangular and organized and really give a lot of breathing room to the situation, right? There's lots of empty space on the side because we're focused very much more on what's being said, not what's being done physically. And then you move to another character. Yeah, you move to characters like Brielle and Dracula. And Brielle is a character who's faced with a decision like that she could potentially stop her father, Blade, but it might involve killing him. And so these panels are very narrow, and it feels very claustrophobic because she's feeling like she's in a tough, tight situation. It's all subconsciously giving you an emotional response. You know, when it's the Avengers, again, look, weird angles because it's an action scene. That's not just like something I don't think Pepe Larraz just did that for fun. I think that he was sincerely giving this some real thought onto how to present these pages, not just do a good drawing, but how to tell a story. Just my opinion. But and I'm sure I'm not the only one that has this opinion now that I think of it. But, you know, like when the heroes are having like this big battle and they're sort of in their like, you know, low point here, like this is all sort of like just congested into one amorphous panel. You know, it shows them at their low point. They're just drowning in the blackness and the sea of dark. No, I think that Pepe Larraz had to be giving some very serious consideration to the storytelling elements in here. That was another thing that I picked up on after I read it. I was like, there's something more to this book. And I started flipping through it again. And I was like, yep, it's the storytelling. Like they put some real thought into it. So that's great that the artist did that. But I also appreciated that Jed MacKay didn't just have something where like Doctor Strange cast a spell and he's like, alakazam, we're going to go back 48 hours in time and everybody's back to life and not vampires anymore. So it's cool. It's really cool that they were able to tell this story and overcome the threat, still had to sacrifice something, and there are specific reasons why some of the heroes get to survive, but they all have different reasons. Very, very good storytelling. I liked it. I've got to say, for an event comic, this impressed me. Is it as deep as, you know, I don't know, something like Saga? No, it's probably not as deep, but it tells a story where heroes have specific motivations, so do the villains, and the plot itself makes sense in how they resolve things. Anyway, I liked it. Could you tell? I don't know if I have as much to say about Ultimate Spider-Man issue 7. Although, again, I'll say that, like, this is one of the better artists Marvel has on their team right now, Marco Cicchetto. Just draws some, like, pretty believable characters that all do look a little different, too, you know? This is the Ultimate Universe's Dr. Octopus, a lot younger. This is Harry Osborn. Peter has a beard. Who else? We've got, like, Robbie Robertson and Uncle Ben and J. Jonah Jameson. They do a good job of making them look different. The story is cool because I'm starting to see where it might be able to go. In this version of the story, Harry and Peter were not like childhood friends, but they've become friends knowing that each other have these abilities, okay? They're both trying to be crime fighters. They're both going after Kingpin. Both of them have suits that are based on Stark technology and have the ability to have an AI system. Just like in the MCU, there's Jarvis, there's Friday, characters like that. They have the ability to do that. Peter says, I want an AI based on me. I like to talk to myself and joke around. That's who I think I want in my head. Harry feels bad that his father is deceased, and he decides he wants his dad as his AI. Can you see how having Norman Osborn in your head could be a bad idea long term? It's not that it necessarily is right now, but I think we've got an idea of how that could go badly now. Maybe they'll surprise me, or maybe they're just setting something up to tell a deeper story. This is just them sparring. Not really battling. But it's setting something up. And I'm glad that we can see where it is, so that we're not too far ahead of the story. The story's not too far ahead of us. It could result in Green Goblin obviously being driven mad and becoming a classic enemy. Or maybe they surprise us and he stays a hero. I don't know. But I see how it's a bad idea. Osborn hair is a real type of hair, and I know because my cousin has it. Oh, yeah, like in the original comics. Yeah, if you have like really thick, like sort of wavy hair, and there was a way to like sort of comb it straight, and it looks like a type of, it's not cornrows, but it's like a wavy groove to it. I know what like guys like Ditko and Ramita were going for. Oh, that's really disappointing to learn, but I guess it can't come as much of a surprise. Boy, yeah, sounds like there's some bad news coming out about how Neil Gaiman has treated other women. I've only seen the news from that single source, so I would be curious to see some other outlets do their own investigation, so that I can like have, with multiple accounts, you can get an objective story, or a more objective story. But yeah, I don't know how realistic the AI is yet, but I feel like it's a bad idea. That I understand why Harry would do it. He always wanted to please his father. His father's gone. He wants a way to sort of connect with him, but yeah, it seems like a bad idea. Before I get to Saga, I'm glad it's back after its break. I'll just talk about, I've been trying the first issue of all these new X-Men books. Didn't really love just plain X-Men. Didn't really love Phoenix. NYX had potential. NYX I'll try the second issue of. But this is another one that I think one and done. Let's see. AI Norman's going to have 8 fingers. I thought somebody else said something. Oh, yeah. Thank you. I appreciate it. I sent you copies of my self-published comics. Oh, I can't wait to check it out. I'll be sure to check out the P.O. box soon. So, X-Force. It's got a good idea for a premise, okay? Forge has always been a guy that comes up with, if he can think of a problem, he can think of a mechanical solution. Well, in this, he decides to come up with a device to amplify his powers to Omega level so that he can solve problems on a bigger scale. And I guess it works. And what that gives him ultimately is the ability to look at this weird piece of technology that shows him where the biggest threats to humanity are about to occur. Okay, so he just knows that there are big problems coming, and he creates a strike force to deal with it. He gathers Sage. Her mutant powers are to analyze situations and come up with probabilities and solve things that way. He recruits Betsy Braddock Psylocke and Rachel Summers, sometimes known as Phoenix. They're part of the team. And then there's one more person they recruited, right? I'm trying to remember. I want to say Tank. So in this one, they basically go to a problem and they bump into Surge. She's a Japanese mutant. And the thread is kind of cool. It's a bunch of little gloopy monsters that eventually merge together and form a kaiju monster. Okay, well that's kind of fun. And they recruit Deadpool as well just for this issue. But Deadpool isn't part of the ongoing comic. Forge kind of screws Deadpool over to beat the monster. And it has to do with the fact that Deadpool has healing powers related specifically to healing his cancer and being an unstable sort of regenerative ability. So it's like a way to poison somebody. It's fine. These are all decent characters. I ultimately just don't care that much about what they're doing, though. I guess I just don't care. It doesn't look bad. It's a good premise, but I just wasn't feeling it a whole lot. I guess I just didn't find the main character Forge as likable as I've felt he is in the past. You know, when Forge was first introduced, he really helped Storm overcome some serious problems that she had, you know. And then another good use of Forge was in the Mystique series that was written by Brian K. Vaughan, where he was sort of the cue to Mystique's James Bond. He would outfit her with specific things. I don't mind the idea of him being proactive and deciding to be a leader. He's always been a smart and capable guy, but I just didn't feel like he was being very likable to his team. I don't know. No, that is not Bulma. That is Surge, who's also being used by Peach Momoko in her Ultimate X-Men series that's way more interesting in my opinion. I agree. Mark Russell is a writer who pretty much does not disappoint, so maybe that'll be the one that'll be good. Yeah, maybe it just needs one or two more. Like if Deadpool was part of the regular cast, I think that would make this a lot more likable, but you know, the biggest names you've got in this book are basically Psylocke and Forge, and they're fine, but I don't think that they're like must-read characters. You know, I don't think that Sage, Surge, Tank, maybe someday they will be, you know, iconic, awesome X characters. I wouldn't say that they really are yet. But, you know, I just did an episode about how I would argue Deadpool took at least 10 years to become, you know, the character that we recognize today. And even after that 10 years and becoming recognizable, it still took stories by guys like Daniel Way and Jerry Duggan and Brian Posehn to really become fully rounded and interesting and stuff. So I think that I'm done with X-Force. If somebody else got something out of it, I'd kind of like to hear that opinion because maybe I'm missing something. But for me, it feels like I needed to care about the team a little bit more, or there needed to be some sort of a dynamic where they butted heads a little bit more. You know, like if we're going to focus really on this team, you want a team that works well together, but you also need that internal conflict here and there. As far as the mission part works well. Forge being the guy that can sense the dangers and proactively seek them out, and they'll just go anywhere in the world. That part's good. But So Saga is back, and I'm just so glad. It really, every once in a while when it takes these hiatuses and comes back, it feels so much more epic, because at this point Hazel is 12 years old, and when the book started, I think there's like an ad for a new trade paperback of it. Yeah, like when the book started, she was a baby, and we're at issue 67, and now she's already 12. It's always been told from Hazel's point of view, but it really starts making more and more sense. And this is a new era for Hazel and her family. You know, they're on the run in a galaxy that's at war, tons of alien races, and they're hiding out basically in a circus now. Well, that's some weirdo characters to get to know. You know, she's got a single mom. She's got all sorts of interesting things going on with her brother, you know, adopted brother. You know, she's starting to learn what she really likes to do and who she is as a person, because at 12 years old, she's starting to become an adult. She's becoming, it started more as Marco and what's her mother's name? All of a sudden I'm blanking because I'm bad at names. What was her mom's name? Did they not? It's something with an A. Why am I having so much trouble with it? I forget now. Great. Anyway, it was more about at first her parents and then about her mom. But now that she's 12, it's really starting to focus more on Hazel. And it's interesting that we can be so epic and go across the galaxy and deal with war and deal with all sorts of the ramifications of war, from, like, you know, what it does to people in the middle, to the people on the battlefield, to the people at the top that are making the decisions, the technology, the resources. It's really interesting. Yeah, I agree. Her brother Squire could become a problem because he just isn't getting the attention he needs. Alana, thank you, everyone. Yes, Alana, thank you. Boy, it just wasn't coming to me. You know, Alana is still a huge part of this book, but I'm saying, you know, she really was sort of the main character for a long time when Hazel was a baby and an infant, and, you know, she isn't quite an adult, really. I mean, but it's like by the time you're 12, you're making decisions, you can talk and interact with the world, and you're starting to like guide your own path a little bit. Great artwork by Fiona Staples. I mean, not everybody's going to like it, but I love Fiona Staples' art. I think that she's so expressive, but so unique too. You know, she really gets a lot accomplished with a minimum of lines. And I like her character design. I like that there's this balance of softness with angularity. There's just a lot to like about it. So Saga continues to be a great book, continues to be very good. What's that? I don't know what's being talked about there. Sorry, I missed something. I don't think I need to like review this whole issue, because I'll be saying some of the same stuff that I'm talking about in Fantastic Four in the past. But again, this is one of the best runs of Fantastic Four. Every issue has a scientific problem to solve, and one or more of the characters are going to solve it in a unique way. It's not always solved with just like a fist fight. But there's always action. But what I just wanted to point out was, I think this is one of Alex Ross's best covers. This is Mr. Fantastic with his stretching abilities getting bitten by vampires. And he's just getting pulled in different directions. And this does involve Reed. He's not, you know, going to get punctured by a bite, but he's the only Fantastic Four member in New York City, and he and Alicia Masters are doing everything they can to protect a bunch of people in the city. And Reed is, you know, just stretching himself to the absolute limits to sort of cover people up and keep them safe. But he's getting severely injured in this, and he's like, getting tired and having trouble thinking of new solutions. Alicia's helping him think outside the box, which is great. It's really cool to see Reed literally have to stretch himself in terms of what to his physical and mental limits. He's stretched to his limits in this. And I just think that the cover, though, is great. I mean, that's really captivating. I mean, it looks painful. It looks weird. It's a great cover. And they've been lucky to have Alex Ross doing their covers for the first 2 years. Very, very good. Yeah. I like Reed when he's up against the wall and has to like think of something clever. And it isn't just like, I invented this new gun that turns vampires into humans. Like, that's too simple as writing. No, this is much more clever. He'll come up with solutions, but he's got limited resources, so it's not like he can just build whatever he wants. He has to test things. It's really cool. These costumes, I don't think that Alex Ross designed these. These are basic. I don't know who designed this specific for. They've always sort of been variations, though, on the original Jack Kirby design. I just recently drew art Fantastic Four for Terrificon. I love Sue Storm's Super comic that you wore in the 90s. That was a unique one. Yeah, Terrificon. That's at Mohegan Sun, right? I think Scott Snyder said he's going to that one. What else? Sorry, I guess I've got some recent artwork in here mixed in. You guys may have seen I was doing like a live stream, like working on this for like a friend's role-playing game that's set, in the 80s, sort of a synthwave crime type comic. And I just drew a view of an AE-86 Hachiroku driving on, a city street in the rain, and, got like the gloved hand on a mirror to just sort of like watch it. I don't know. I was just trying to create something interesting there. And then hopefully you guys will get to see this colored and lettered soon. But this is something else that I recently drew. Just sort of a funny one-page gag of somebody getting told like, hey, that's good art. You should do something with them. Oh, and like trying to sell it, and the time passes, and like just going like, everyone's a critic. What else? Oh, Roaming by the Tamaki cousins won some Eisners. So I was like, well, I got to read this. And you know what? I get it. I get why this won some awards. This is just over 400 pages, but I read this fast. Jillian is the artist and Mariko is the writer. And this is a story about two childhood friends, Danny and Zoe, who have now each gone off to college for their first year and maybe started to discover who they are as people. They're both Canadians. And they've decided to meet up in New York City to see what New York's about. And when they meet, Danny has brought her new friend from college, Fiona. And the three of them have very different personalities, and they wander around through New York seeing different things. It's some of it is about these friends sort of being pushed apart a little bit because they've changed, and then how they sort of ultimately can come back together. Fiona's definitely sort of the wild card in this situation that makes some big changes. As you can sort of see, this is just duotone. This is two colors. But so that just means that the colors are not always literal colors, but it can still be very expressive. It's a fast read. I'm trying to find, sometimes they've got these really cool 2-page spreads that like pace the story out in a certain way. They have no problem using lots of negative space to just highlight moments. But sometimes when they're in the city itself, there are some really nice, like more surreal collages of what they're seeing at, say, like a museum or a famous monument. It's great because obviously the artwork can be very realistic, right? But the characters are very simple. They're very cartoony. But that does allow you, as Scott McCloud once noted, to project yourself onto the characters very easily, to relate to them on some level. I liked it. I liked it a lot. It was a very emotional story. It's stuff that I've definitely encountered, how you can like sort of drift away from friends, but then sometimes reconnect with them. It's really, really a beautiful, realistic story. It's not autobiographical or anything like that, but very relatable. Very relatable. I like it. I give it a strong recommend. Is there anything else I really need to dive into this week? Well, I will say that Grommets continues to entertain. Rick Remender's got 3 books out right now, I believe. He's got Sacrificers, Holy Roller, and Grommets. I think I've got that right. And I like them all, but I think I like Grommets the most. And I wouldn't have expected to. I would have thought that maybe Holy Roller would have been my favorite. This artwork by Brett Parson is fantastic. I believe I've made this observation on my show before. It reminds me of some of the best Mad magazine artists like Jack Davis. This is just an issue of 2 friends deciding to play hooky from school and the trouble they get into, but also the sort of the stresses that they have in life, and that's cool, the stresses of like home life or impressing their moms and trying to impress girls, whether they should play hooky, whether they should go to school, and each of the 2 main characters, to be clear, are based on the writers, Rick Remender and Brian Posehn. They're called that. They're given their personalities. They were not friends as kids, but this presupposes that they basically were and comes up with a fictional story. It's just a slice of life story told in a very amusing and believable way. There's nothing that dynamic that happens. It's like the best Seinfeld stuff, Seinfeld, like not much would happen in some of their episodes. It would just be about like finding where they park their car. That's kind of what you get in Grommets, but it's really, really nice. I laughed a few times, and maybe there's a bit of nostalgia in this because this is set back in the 80s, and maybe not everybody's going to relate to that, but I did. The idea of like going to the mall or going to the arcade, not really things that people do as much anymore. You do, but not as much as you used to, because there was no internet and there was no cell phones and stuff like that. Anyway, look at that. That's just a really nice looking shot. Maybe it's comfort food, but I like it. I like it a lot. Public Domain came back, and if you haven't read it, this is a great fictionalized look at the comics industry, where a guy who created a popular character called the Domain basically lost the rights to a Marvel-esque company, but then he's gotten the publishing rights to the character back, and he's brought this guy is the artist that like sort of helped create the character, and he's sort of like a little bit Ditko, a little bit Kirby, but he's not fully them. And he's brought in his 2 sons and an assistant and a neighbor. Like, he's bringing in all these people that all have different ideas on what his character should be, and he's feeling a little like out of touch because they're all so much younger. But you can sort of, it's an interesting way to look at how stories are created by a few collaborators. And it's contrasted with his co-creator, a sort of meaner version of Stan Lee that's still like active, trying to prove that he can also still create something good and new, and the industry hasn't left him behind. But there's dynamics beyond that are really cool, like the fact that his sister is this hard as nails president of this publishing conglomerate, and that he's forced to work with the new hip young writer who is kind of using that as a cover to just do good business. But he's like this sort of smarmy British asshole that just like knows that his ideas sell. It's an interesting look at a lot of different aspects of how comics are created, but also the types of people that it takes to get it done. Basically, both of these guys who had co-created the domain feel that they need help, and they come after their old editor, and they each make a pitch to her at the same night. It's a coincidence that they both show up, and they both make a pitch to get her services because they know that will get their comic to the next level. And Chip both writes and draws this, so it's nice. It's really, really nice. Yeah. I haven't read the domain itself yet. That's basically Chip is also writing the domain, which is about the comic that these characters create. I haven't been able to read that yet. Yeah, there are some aspects of that. Exactly. There's some aspects of the kids being sort of becoming a legacy creator, a la the Kuberts, the Romitas. There's other examples too. It's very realistic. It's very realistic. It's not 100% analogous to any actual comic book history, but it definitely takes from our history of comics and doesn't turn everybody into a cartoon. Like, even though the antagonist is basically, like I say, sort of this Stan Lee type of character, it's a type. It's not a one for one. He's got his own dynamics with, like, his sister and what he wants to prove to himself and just how he treats other people. It's not a one-to-one. It's just influenced by some real stuff. I'll have to read it. That's cool. If you're just curious about the industry, if you've been reading comics for a while and you like stories that aren't just comics but about comics, Public Domain is something pretty special. And it's just really cool that Chip Zdarsky is so well known as a writer, but he really is a very good artist. Just to be clear, he is a good artist, and I'm glad that he's able to do something this personal and draw it himself. He's a good artist. Thank you, Joshua. If it wasn't a leap year, it would be your birthday today. Exactly. I will check out the domain as soon as I see it at a store. I'll definitely pick it up. I want to. I do recommend Hate Revisited, especially if you like, 90s culture, 90s slacker culture. If you like the original Hate, if you like indie comics, there's a lot. If you like humor comics, there's a lot to like here. We finally learn why in the modern day, the character Stinky, how he died and what happened with him. But it's cool. This blends both stories from the 90s, in, like, Jersey and New York, and it has them in black and white, and it blends it with the modern day where Buddy Bradley is married, has a kid, lives in Tacoma, and is seeing the same, like, his sons make the same sort of slacker mistakes that he potentially made. But it's funny. It's funny. I guess, Peter Baggy's probably an acquired taste in some regards, but I like it. I like it. I recommend it. The Nice House by the Sea is the last book I'll talk about tonight. So James Tynion and Alvaro Martinez Bueno did The Nice House by the Lake, which was about the world is destroyed, okay? Like it just burns and it was like aliens did it, but we don't know exactly why or how. All we see it from is the limited perspective of 12 friends who were all selected by a common friend who turns out to have been an alien, but he's very unknowable and distant, okay? And he selected 12 friends to survive. They live in a beautiful mansion by a lake, and they can get whatever they want, but they're trying to figure out like what really happened to the outside world. It's a mystery, and there's a lot of dynamics. Was it 12 people, or maybe it was only 10 people? It's hard to remember now. Not that important. What happens now is now there's a sequel series, okay? And the biggest difference is now it's 10 people saved by a similar type of alien being that looks human but is not, and they don't know each other. The people that were saved this time, they aren't friends, so they've got a lot more conflict going on. But they live in a mansion. All their wants are provided for. They have very different jobs. These people are all very professional. You know, like there's an actor, there's scientists, there's writers, Nobel Prize winners. You know, there's a lot of interesting stuff going on here. Gorgeous artwork, right? I mean, look at that. These are like paintings, more than illustrations. Not to say one is better than the other. I'm just saying that this is a really cool look for the book. Really a lot to like about it. But this is the alien that like saved them. And the artist always draws the glasses opaque, so you never really see their eyes, and that sort of helps keep that character at arm's length, you know? I kind of like that. Let's see. Glad you were conceived. Happy birthday. Thank you. I am glad as well. I am glad as well. I'm not going to give away too much yet. It is kind of a scary story, but as a psychological thriller. The cool thing is, I'll just like, this is the premise, because this is just issue 1 of like 10 or 12 issues. These are characters from the last series. So something's happened, and it's a bigger story than we got before. This is definitely a bigger story. And it's hinted at that there are potentially several alien or otherworldly or other dimensional beings that have set up several houses, and that this is some sort of a test to see which dynamic works best. Very weird. Psychological horror, but it looks gorgeous. It's confusing, but in a good way. Speaking of happy birthday to mama tropes. Mom? What? Oh! Took me a minute. Okay. So what my sister's referring to there is we've got a unique dynamic in our family. My sister was born on my father's birthday, and I was born on my mother's birthday, literally. So we grew up with 2 birthdays. So she's referring to that. Yes, I will not forget to call mom tomorrow. It just means that we always, all of us always shared our birthday. There were 2 birthdays. There were 2 birthdays, and that was it. And I didn't think of that as weird growing up, because it's just what I knew. But now as an adult, like having some objectivity and stuff, like the odds for that happening twice, that is pretty weird, right? 2 birthdays for 4 people. Yeah, literally the same day, not like a day off and we celebrated together. No, like I was born on my mother's birthday. My sister was born on my father's birthday. That's just what it was. I don't know what to tell you. No, it was not planned. That's how it happened. No. Oh, that's interesting. Born on Father's Day and my brother on Mother's Day, and that was planned. No, not planned. Each of us came at sort of different speeds when it was time. Yeah. I was born on my due date. Yeah, just the way it was. But yeah. Some good comics though this week. Some good comics for sure. What am I not reading that you guys are reading that you think I should be reading? Always curious to get recommendations. I've also been reading some more manga. I read the latest Kaiju number 8. I'm reading Vagabond by Takehiko Inoue. Am I reading anything else for manga right now? I don't think so. But I think tomorrow there's maybe a new Spy Family. There's a new something that I read. I think that's tomorrow. So yeah, there's some stuff. Oh yeah, Local Man. Local Man is fantastic. Really strong recommend. Good chance that it could make my top 10 list of the year again. I like Dark Ride. I like Dark Ride a lot. I think that I forget the artist's name off the top of my head, but now he's doing Destro, and he's doing a good job on that. But he was a really good fit on Dark Ride. That worked really well. Another vote for Local Man. Oh yeah, I fell behind on the Deviant. I need to get that. Department of Truth is good. Wow, looks like James Tynion is having a great year. I will. I'll get a cup of gourmet Maxwell House. Thank you very much. Yes, Cowl. I'm excited to see that come back too. I'm kind of in the bag for Kyle Higgins. His superhero stuff especially works really well for me. So I'm looking forward to seeing that come back too. Coda Final Dawn. Fantastic issue of Spider-Man. Congrats on getting that. Great back issue at this point. Yeah, great. Oh, I need to catch back up on Tokyo Revengers. I've read a little more than half of the volumes that have come out so far, but I need to catch back up. I like it. I like it quite a bit. Thank you, Larry. Have I read Bodies? I have it. I did buy the trade paperback. I haven't had time to read it yet. I keep getting sort of behind with either work, like my day job, comic tropes, or just reading the comics that came out this week. And sometimes back issues and manga kind of fall behind. But I do have it, and I do want to read that one. That's nice to hear. I think that Marvel needs to assign Larry Hama to write a Donald Duck comic. They are doing them. That is specifically what Larry has always said he most wants to do. Can you please let the man have his dream come true? Late to the stream. Last week, someone said you sounded like you're reading from Wikipedia. Did they? I missed that. Okay. That was far from the truth. Your tropes are well thought out, and I know you do your research. Well, I do, and I don't start with Wiki because I want to do something different. So I try to come up as often as I can. I've done a lot of episodes, so sometimes they probably are somewhat chronological, but mostly I try to have an angle. Like, I'm going to talk about this person's, like what was going on in the world that influenced them, or how did their family or their religion influence them? Or, what did they do differently than the other artists or writers at the time? I'm glad you got that. Batman Dylan Dog was really good. Really, really strong. Really cool. I didn't hear about that one. The Power Fantasy. That's a blind spot. I'll try to look it up. Yeah, Larry Hama said, hey, I grew up with funny animal comics. I especially like Donald Duck. I always wanted to write that stuff. And I think if you look at what he created, that makes sense. He co-created Bucky O'Hare with Michael Golden. He co-created Spider-Ham. So, yeah, give him what he... I did address it. I thought somebody asked, do I use Wikipedia? I don't know. Did somebody actually accuse me of that? I don't know. Whatever. I'll do it, Carmine Infantino, at some point. No question. I will. I don't know. They said you didn't sound like you were reading from Wikipedia. Okay. That sounds right. I don't know. It all blends together. Okay, yeah. Looks like, let's see. Have you seen Larry Hama's recent social media posts about his financial situation? No. Is he in any sort of issue? Because I heard that he is getting royalties from Skybound on his G.I. Joe stuff now. And obviously that Kickstarter was the most funded comic book project of all time. He's about to do a Kickstarter of his own book, I know, Mounties versus Werewolves, with Guy Dorian Sr. on art. That looks like fun. No, I'm pretty sure that I don't. I don't think I have any sort of like official page or anything like that out there. I mean, I've done a couple interviews over the years. That's all I can think of as far as stuff like that. I'm not going to start my own. That just feels like a real weird ego move. Yeah, I heard about the Peter David GoFundMe. Unfortunately, he's had a lot of health issues over the years, and he's had to have a couple of those now. It's bonkers to me. This is a guy who's created so many great stories, but also a bunch of important characters. Spider-Man 2099, and tons of important stuff in the Hulk, Maestro, for instance. I don't know. Sad that he needs that kind of help. It doesn't feel right. It doesn't feel right that. Yeah, I talk about that regularly on this. I think Holy Roller, the last 2 issues have gotten actually funnier than how it started. So it's going strong. That's right. That is what was asked. That all of a sudden it's clicking. Right. Last week somebody said, how do you not sound like you're just reading Wikipedia on a mic? And that's what I went into. Right. It took me a while. I think he's got a whole host of health issues, to be honest. I don't know that he was a fan, but if you look on this channel, I do have an interview that I did with him back in the day. It's only about 10 minutes, but yeah, I did get to interview him, which was nice. Oh yeah, he wrote some novels. He's written a little bit of like low budget movie stuff. Yeah. I'll get to Norm Brayfogle at some point. Kelly Jones, probably. Norm Brayfogle, I would get to first, just because definitely a fan. That would be another blind spot. I mean, I'm definitely aware of Zen Intergalactic Ninja, but I didn't read it. I didn't read that book. Why is this not focusing? Tomorrow is the birthday. I'm hopeful that I'll have a new camera. That was one thing I had on my wish list, is a very specific camera that should not autofocus, because this obviously is like, it's a nice webcam, but it autofocuses and it's driving me nuts. And yeah. Oh, I have seen him say that before, that he can't afford to retire. I have heard him say that before. Yeah, which is bonkers to me. I mean, that is bonkers. Put aside the fact that this guy was an editor on some fantastic books like Conan and The Nam, right? Put aside that he wrote some fantastic comics, like a really long run on Wolverine, Avengers, all sorts of stuff like that. For G.I. Joe alone, it's bonkers to me that Hasbro hasn't like looked back and been like, this guy created the characters that we sell, and we owe him. Like, we've made millions on him. Just bonkers. I didn't think my hair was that bad, but sure, thanks. I'll take it. You should make a list of problems you need to solve and get me over to your house sometime to fix problem solve. Yeah, sure. Can you help me with like some weeding, Chuck? Or just get me the name of that CPA. I could use a CPA. It's not your problem to solve my problems. Thanks for watching. I'm very proud of what we're doing with Trash Movie Bonanza, and I'm just having fun. So, folks, that stuff keeps me creatively energized. Jim is just awesome. He's suggesting to me so many weird things that I haven't seen yet, and I just have fun talking to him. And I think our dynamic just continues to get better. Thank you for the suggestions. Oh, I beg to differ. Look, does G.I. Joe sell what Transformers does? Probably not, but G.I. Joe is selling plenty well for them right now. Classified does very well, and they license this stuff out to like Super 7 and other places. G.I. Joe and the comic is selling incredibly well. Trust me, Hasbro makes money off of that. They're doing fine. You can fix the autofocus. Yes, you're my tech guy. I'll hire you as my producer. Oh yeah, Nth Man is so underrated. That was a really cool book. He's proud of Nth Man. I have it. Thanks for all the interesting questions. It's always kind of fun to wrap up with I call that my cool down. Just answering general questions about the show or comics and stuff like that. Yeah, Toxic Avenger is getting a new book. I think it's drawn by Matt Bors, who's a really funny cartoonist, and I'm trying to remember who's writing it. It's somebody good. It's somebody really funny. I don't remember right now, but it's a good creative team, so I'm looking forward to it, especially because apparently the Toxic Avenger reboot movie that starred Peter Dinklage and was directed by you guys know I'm bad at names. A good director who's done a few cool indie things. They said that the movie was just so weird that they didn't know how to market it, so I don't think it's going to get released. I'm tired of these companies sitting on things that they don't know how to market, like Batgirl or Wile E. Coyote Acme or Grendel, and now Toxic Avenger, and just going, we'll just take the tax write-off. No, you're going to make more money if at the very least just sell it to Apple Plus or Netflix or whoever. And I bet you anything you'd make more money. Macon Blair. Thank you, Kevin. Yes, Macon Blair, good director. He's done some cool stuff. Blue. I forget. Look at his Wikipedia or IMDb. Matt Bors is writing. Got it. In an alternate reality, you do voice work and Jim's a professional voice man for radio in Hollywood. Thank you. They don't know how to market as just Weasel corporate speak. I think that sometimes they just don't, like, they legit haven't figured out how to do it, but there's a way to do it. There's a market. I'm like the market. Like, I'll watch your weird Toxic Avenger reboot. Macon Blair and Peter Dinklage and Toxic Avenger. How bad can that be? I don't know. I'm interested. Blue Ruin. Blue Ruin is a really interesting, modestly scaled crime thriller that Macon Blair did. Really, really cool. Oh, he just starred in it? Didn't he direct something? I know he's always in like his friends' movies. I thought he directed one movie. It's not coming to me. I've got it like just in the back of my head. The boys even took a dig at, yes, they did. They had a really funny joke about that. Yeah, they're like, we're going to shelve A-Train, but we're going to take a tax write-off. And isn't that what it's about, is making money? Trauma doesn't know how to market a weird movie. I don't think Trauma was the one that was actually doing the reboot. I think they just licensed this out to a bigger studio, just to be clear. Because Trauma is just the stuff Trauma comes out with, like, there is pretty blatantly offensive most of the time, and they are who they are. They just are who they are. A little. I've been very busy. I've watched a little of the Olympics. I've seen some really impressive stuff. The gymnastics was fantastic. Thought that the USA did very well there. some of the diving has been insanely good this year. The high dive stuff. China is doing very well. I think that they have the most gold medals this year, right? China does, I think. The air pistol shooters, come on, that guy from Turkey, what a G. Thank you, Kevin. I knew he directed something. I don't feel at home in this world anymore. That was good. Yeah. So I'm curious to see more. What else did I see for the Olympics? Not much, to be honest. I didn't see a lot. But I kind of admire the Olympics a lot. It's so cool that there's at least, look, I'll just say this. Two things. One, I love the competition. I love that people are just trying to be the best and test what the human body can do and test it against each other, sort of just see who the best of the best is. And I like that all these different countries that have all sorts of different issues can come together and kind of compete on that. It's kind of nice. But I'll also say the Olympic Committee itself is pretty corrupt and weird. But I love that there's something that we as a planet, just about everybody participates in. Not everybody, but just about. It's kind of awesome. It's kind of awesome. And I love that it can level the playing field. Like you'd think that the USA should just be able to mop the floor in something like basketball, but we can't. Oh yeah. Yeah, that Korean lady that was like also an air pistol shooter, she was so cool. Oh, we're currently tied. Okay. Yeah, that's the thing. It's so weird. Theoretically, it should bring in so many tourist dollars. But the infrastructure that every city has to create at this point to house the athletes and the visitors and have the transport, it's just so many billions of dollars behind it that you sort of understand why it's corrupt when there's that much money behind it. And I still feel so bad for Japan that, like, you know, the pandemic comes around and they don't even really get the Olympics after investing so much in their infrastructure. I mean, they sort of get the Olympics, but not really. Anyway. Are there any other good movies coming out? I don't think there's any other comic book movies coming out this year, right? But there's still some stuff that might be good. I think that the Alien Romulus movie looks interesting. I don't know what else to think about, like for upcoming movies. Are there any like comic book adaptations for TV that I'm not thinking of? Like I say, I saw one episode of Batman Caped Crusader, and I was pretty impressed. I'm looking forward to getting some time to doing that again. I might see Trap 2. I'm curious. I'm curious. Oh, right. Craven and Hellboy. I am looking forward to the Ninja Turtles cartoon. That looks promising. That's so bonkers to think about that there's a Craven movie coming out. Craven still makes more sense to me than Madam Web, I guess. But boy, why don't you just do Spider-Man 2099? I don't know, something like Spider-Gwen. I mean, they sort of did in the animated movies, but I'm just saying there's other stuff they could do with more important heroes, not these villains and stuff. I haven't seen Terminator Zero. Did it debut already? I'm going to check it out. I like Terminator. I've watched everything Terminator. I've read everything Terminator. I'll try it. Transformers 1. That looks like it might be good for kids. I don't know if it's quite for me, but I like the Transformers comic. That's become my favorite take. Agatha Harkness. That could be good. Oh, that's right. They did make a little Kite Man show. It's craving time. All right. Somebody's knocking, but hopefully my wife can get that. I guess that's all I've got to say for this week, right? I've talked plenty. I didn't have anything in mind to draw. I wanted to draw, but I couldn't think of anything to draw. Hopefully things slow down soon because I've just been working like a madman, and I'm doing an extra day of work at my day job this week so that I can go to Ren Fair on Saturday, and that's my birthday gift to me. So I'm going to go see, I'm going to go to the Ren Fair. I know what I can show you. I thought of one other thing. Hold on. So some of you know that I sell cars, used cars. That's my day job. Don't know how I fell into that, but it's not bad. It's not bad. I had this week an official Iron Man car. So let me pull that up. I got to show you guys this thing. I got to show you because who knew that there was an official Iron Man car? Well, there was. I'm just scrolling through to find it. Bear with me. I took some pictures because I thought that I thought some of you might find it interesting. Okay, here I go. Present extra screen. Here we go. So I posted this to Twitter, and I think I shared it on Insta as well. Can you see that? Is that? Yeah. So this is what an official Iron Man car looks like. 2019. Starts with like the color scheme, gray and red. Don't know why they didn't do like mainly red with like gold accents, but whatever. It says Marvel there. There's a few more things to it. This is like when you boot it up for the system check, you get like Iron Man's face. You've got the arc reactors on all the sort of tiles. You've got the seats. The leather seats have like, what do you call this? Like a debossed Iron Man helmet and a Stark logo. The key fob has an embedded logo. The tires, or the wheels, I should say. The wheels are the best part as far as the detail goes. I have to admit, those are nice looking wheels all around. I do like that. I do like that. The headlights literally say Iron Man in them. There are these like sort of stamped, I don't know, Iron Man head buttons on each side. There's the gear shift again with like the arc reactor, but this is specifically the MCU Iron Man. You know what I mean? It's got Tony Stark's, a fictional character's signature on the passenger dash. Oh my goodness. And on the back trunk, it says Iron Man 2 in like the movie logo. And so that reminded me of a story. You know, it's still just a car. This one was in fantastic shape. One owner, like, what was it? I think we literally saw what the mileage is. Again, this was a 2019, and the mileage was 18,876. That's pretty good for a 2019 car. It's pretty nice in my opinion. It was priced low too. It's a Hyundai Kona. That's a nice car. I like the Hyundai Kona quite a bit actually. I have nothing bad to say about it at all. My wife and I each own Hyundais. So this reminded me of a story though about about 4 years ago at work. I was selling a Walking Dead car. They made an official Hyundai Tucson Walking Dead edition, and I was selling that. There's me with all it really had was like this and a badge on the back. It didn't have as many details as the Iron Man car. That's just what it was called, the Walking Dead Special Edition. And here's the story that I had here. So some customers were looking at this and they were excited. They're going, "Oh, cool, The Walking Dead. That's such a good show." You know, this was like what, 24 years ago? I don't know, 2020 or something. People were like, "Oh, Walking Dead." And so I decided I'd try to connect to them. I go, I actually was the proofreader for the entire run of the Walking Dead comic. My friend wrote that. And they go, "Oh." That was the interest that it got. It's like, "Oh, glad I shared. That makes me feel big." I was a Subaru salesman for 3.5 years. I like Subarus. No, we don't sell comics. Anyway, this was several years back. I guess that's all I've got. I just thought that was somewhat unique to show you an official Iron Man car and an official Walking Dead car. Those are just things that like have been made in the past. But when it becomes used, it becomes used. It's not worth any more or less at that point, other than just the condition. I don't know if they didn't know. They certainly didn't care. And it made me feel like that big. I thought that they would be like, oh, cool, we like Walking Dead. I'm just trying to connect. I wasn't trying to brag, but I feel like that maybe they thought that I was. It doesn't matter. I would love to sell the turtle van, but I don't think that they did that one yet. But anyway, it was funny. More impressive to the ladies? I have no idea. Sure. Was there anything else I wanted to talk about? I don't think so. Yeah, I guess I'll just call it a night, have dinner, and I work tomorrow for my birthday so that I can take Saturday off, but I'm looking forward to that. That'll be fun. I like going to the Ren Fair. It's hot this time of year, but we've got a decent little one. The people there are always just so happy, and it's fun to do things like axe throwing or get like a turkey leg. So that's pretty cool. Well, we wouldn't sell anything quite that unique because, it has to be like we only sell sort of like we wouldn't sell like one-off weird cars, and we wouldn't sell cars that are like gimmick cars, and we wouldn't sell anything that's like older than about 10 years old. So yeah, not many weird vehicles that fit within those parameters. Thanks for hanging out with me, everybody. I had a great time. I hope you did as well. And am I forgetting anything else? I don't think so. I'm looking forward to talking to you next week. We'll have more comic books and more comic book news to talk about. Keep your eye on Comic Tropes. I've got a pretty funny episode, I think, coming out. And I'll give you the old double salute to end this as well. Double salute. Take care, everybody. Keep reading comics.